Okay, everyone. Let's talk about portfolio performance evaluation. Oh, this is pooled, right? Pooled investments. What is pooled investments? If you have only one stock or one bond, it's not a pooled investment. It's single investments. If you have those together, right, it's called a pooled investments. And then many companies, right, mutual fund companies, hedge funds, or your financial advisors, right, they have investments. How can you evaluate whether they're doing a great job or not? That's what we're going to talk about today. It's a really critical concept, tested heavily in CFA level 3, and then in level 1 you have some idea, right? And then this will be one of the main focus of my class, and then you will do some cases on pooled investments. You need to provide professional suggestions and your own understanding about it to receive a good grade in my class. Okay, it weighs very heavily in my class. So let's talk about it, right? Passive investments, they just track the index, right? This is basically index. They don't try to do anything. They have their own measurement. That's not the main focus of what we're going to do today. We will focus mainly on active management. So those managers think that they can do a great job and achieve higher returns, but do they actually do the job? Right? You don't know. And also, we'll talk about whether they have good market timing ability or not. So how do we compare it, right? So this is one hedge fund. How do we compare it? We just compare it with the average, right? So this is a performance rate of return, right? So for this, it has probably around 10% return in the first quarter, but is it good or bad? We first compare it with, let's say, S&P 500, the market right here, probably around 8%. It is better than the market, but is it good or bad? You don't know either, right? And then what are those, right? Those are funds, right? So like, it's just peer group, right? If it's like you did a great job in one exam, but are you doing a better job? So we will just look at student 1, 2, and then if we have 30 students in this class, right, we look at all of them, right? Students 30. And then we will just rank them, right? What is the top, right? Top 25%. What is the grade? And then it will be 25 to 50, right? To 50, 50% to 75%, and then 75% to the lowest, right? 100%. So it's the same. They do the same thing for fund, right? So the top 25% of these funds competitors, okay, you can think that way, will probably be around 11%, right? The medium here is around 8%, and then the 75% will be 5%. This fund is getting like 10%, so they are doing pretty okay here, right? They are closing out to the top 25%, but not in the top 25%. So that's what the first quarter means. So the most recent quarter, right? And then they look at the most recent year, most 3 years, most recent 3 years, most recent 5 years. It's just how you compare it. Is that making sense? Certainly, you don't want to compare it, right? You need to compare it with competitors. You don't want to compare it with some people not really relevant. Right? You don't want to compare your grade from my class to some students in other professors' class on an absolute basis, right? So that example is you don't want to compare your grade from my risk management class to someone who is taking a communication class in a different college, right? It makes no sense. So that's why you need to compare the investments with the same style. Okay? You can compare my investments class with my risk management class. Those would be probably easier. Okay. And then let's look at risk-adjusted basis. So we always want to adjust for risk, right? It's the same idea, right? You need to compare with the same style. So if you take a lot of risk, so for someone who is working, right, hourly wage at McDonald's is $8, and then you work 2 hours in a different place, you have $16. You don't want to you don't want to say that look, my $16 is better than your $8. That's not true, right? Because you work longer hours, so you need to divide it, right? You need to adjust this. It's the same. You need to adjust for the beta. And when we use single index model or some other multi-factor model, so that's the whole idea of adjustment. Right here, you adjust for hours. However, investments, you adjust for risk. And then, so you need to know that the variance of the portfolio, you just need to know this. It's just based on CAPM, okay, capital asset pricing model, you can just calculate this way. A lot of times this should equal to 0, okay? The error term should be just noise, okay? Oh, this is called idiosyncratic risk. If you diversify itself well, this should be eliminated, okay? We use Sharpe ratio, which is a reward to risk, right? Reward to volatility, the Sharpe ratio. You need to know that for the same level of risk, okay, you want to get a higher reward, right? So that's what it says. So Sharpe ratio, higher the better. We use this to analyze the fund. Alpha, right? You adjust it, right? Like you work an hour, you get $8, and then you work 2 hours, you get $17. What is your alpha here? Okay, first of all, you need to 17 divided by 2, right? And then this is probably higher. This is 8.5, right? You get paid $8.5 an hour, and then your average salary for everyone else should be $8, right? So then your alpha here is 8.5 divided by 8. The minus 8 will be 0.5. It's the same in risk management. In investments, you need to use this equation to calculate this CAPM. It's the same. You also have this is regression analysis. We talked about this already, and then you guys are going to use this to do analysis. Okay. We have so there are some others, right? Alpha capture and alpha transport. Establishing alpha while using index product for both hedge fund exposure and establishing to the derived sectors. So just different alpha stress strategies, okay? Alpha capture is construction of positive alpha portfolio systematic risk hedging way. So what is this? You have a long position and then you short a future contract, or you short some ETF, okay? So get rid of the beta. So this is beta 0 strategy, okay? Or it's called a pure alpha strategy. And then right here you do have desired exposure to market risk. So this 3-factor model, right, we talked about this already. Just refer to my previous videos. It's just another way to calculate alpha. Again, this is just how you adjust risk. They have a different way to adjust risk. Okay. Style analysis. Okay. Complex method of performance evaluation introduced by William Sharpe. Originally, recent study mutual fund performance showed more than 90% return variation can be explained by fund allocation. Okay, so what they say is, so you have stock, right? You have bond. So you have to make decisions on allocating them, right? 60-40. So the decision of how much to put in stock and how much to put in bonds is explain 90% of the variation. So basically this is very important. This is called asset allocation. This is asset allocation. It's more important than stock picking. Okay. So in explaining the variation of returns historically. Okay. So this is a really famous study. I think it's originally published in FHA. So you can always go back and review it. So this is what we did, right? So this is Morningstar's star rating. So that's just how they rate it. Okay, so they look at risk-adjusted performance, and then they rank them by in percentile, and then the 90% to 100% is 5-star, and is 1-star. I wouldn't recommend you to rely too much on Morningstar ratings. So if you in my class, if you just give me the Morningstar rating as a strong evidence of a backup, that means you know nothing. Okay, so you will get a really low grade if you just tell me I'm recommending this because Morningstar has a 3-star or 4-star rating. So that's bad. Okay, you need to know, you need to calculate risk-adjusted return. You need to explain what's going on in the fund, what they did, what do you think about what they did, what they're gonna do in the future, and then make some recommendations. So you can always plot it. Okay, this is called a QQ plot. Just plot percentile by percentile. So there are a lot of other ways to adjust risk, right? This is called the channel ratio. You adjust for beta. We talk about Sharpe ratio. How to calculate alpha, and then we have M squared. Okay, it's just a different way. They just use total risk instead of market risk. Okay, here, and then we have information ratio. This is for active. This is for active investments. Okay, if you deviate too much from the benchmark, that's how we value your performance. It's called information ratio. So how do we apply it? Given that I talk about so many things, so this is how you apply it. Okay. So first of all, you compare your portfolio with the benchmark. Okay, and then your style benchmark, and then you compare your style benchmark with the market benchmark. So let's just read over it. You have 5.04% return, but is this good or bad? We don't know, right? And then let's say if this is a small cap, right? It's a small cap fund. The first thing you do is you need to pick a small cap benchmark. Okay, this is also small cap, right? This can be Russell 2000, right? And then all other small mutual fund performance is 5.332. So it certainly didn't do well, right? Even though it's positive, but others are average are doing better than what you are doing, right? And then given that it is a small cap, your performance is more risky, and then the market, which is larger cap, is 3.92%. So you just decompose, right? You just decompose those 5.04%. Certainly you didn't do well compared with the benchmark or the competitors. However, you did better than the market just because you have higher risk, okay? So everyone else in small cap is doing better than the market, large cap. So that's just how it allocates. This looks very intimidating, right? Don't get overwhelmed. It's fairly simple, okay? So let's look at it, right? This is a portfolio weight, this is benchmark weight, this is portfolio sector return, this is benchmark sector return. So let's just look at, so you allocate 6.77 in agriculture. However, the benchmark allocates 6.45. You overweight here, right? You bet agriculture is going to do well, and that's why you add more money into agricultural sector compared with the benchmark. You have negative return, but is it bad? Yeah, it is bad if you compare with the benchmark. The benchmark has negative return as well, but it's not as bad as yours. What does that mean? It means you did really bad, okay? Picking stocks in agricultural sector, you pick the worst performance stock in agriculture compared with the benchmark. So easiest thing to do is you just go with the benchmark, do whatever the benchmark does, and then you are good. The only reason why you do those is because you think you can do better than the benchmark. The only reason why you overweight in agriculture is because you think you know more than the market. So that's what's going on. So how much of your performance is from allocation? So this is how you look at it. Right here you over allocate in financial sector, right? And then the benchmark performance 2.22 is better than the overall. So this is a good sector, right? Financial sector is good because 2.22% return is better than the average of the benchmark, 0.56. So this is good, right? And then you allocate more than what is allocated in the benchmark on financial. You overweight more, so this is also good. You did a great job here, okay? You overweight the good performing sector, so that's what's going on here. And then let's look at utility, right? Did you pick good stocks in utility? The benchmark return is negative 0.42. However, you have the 0.54, okay, or 54 basis points. So you did a great job here, right? The sector is having a negative return. However, you have positive return. Why? Because you picked the best stock in the sector. So that's the contribution from within sector stock allocation, okay? And then so this just says interaction, right? Interaction return, whatever is unexplained by your sector allocation, and then within sector stock picking is explained by the interaction variable. So it's fairly easy to calculate, right? So this is another way to look at it. You can look at all those matrix. All those are called a matrix, right? You can just do the calculations. Morningstar software does provide outputs on those. Okay, so a lot of time we use the software, you don't have to calculate by hand. However, in this class, I do also want to see that you use Excel to show how to calculate some of the metrics accordingly. And then when it's when you are given this, you need to know whether they are doing a great job, right? So the information ratio, channel ratio, M-squared Sharpe ratio, those are all larger the better, right? It seems you are doing a great job other than channel ratio or others. Again, all those metrics are not going to be consistent, okay? You are not going to get something perfectly pure, okay? Like, this is not happening in reality, okay? So it seems you are doing a good job. However, your market just return is a little bit lower, okay? Based on those, and then your alpha, that's why your alpha is low if you use CAPM to do the calculation. Your residual standard in correlation with the benchmark is fairly high. So this tells us, all right, the correlation with the benchmark is fairly high. So this is probably a large cap, okay. And then they do take some additional risk here. On the total risk perspective, they are doing a better job. However, if you look at only market risk, it seems they are underperforming. Okay, even though you do have average excess return larger than the other than portfolio Q. Okay, so when we compare P with Q, so there are some problems with performance measurement. Okay, we do assume fund maintain constant level of risk. If you use a return-based analysis, this is not the assumption we make. However, if you look at only 1 quarter, you assume that they're gonna do it. And in my class, we will also ask you to analyze whether the fund changes style, right? Because some fund will increase or decrease their allocation to exposure to risk. Again, abnormal return can be by chance alone. This is all about skill or luck, right? There are a lot of people talk about those. Is it skill or just randomly they just outperform just by chance alone? Survival bias, the losers are closed, right? If you have a fund that's doing really bad, they will close it. So the fund that you see today are survivors, okay? So you will also make your results sometimes hard to interpret because of survivorship bias. We talked about the decomposing a while ago. Then we will also look into whether mutual fund managers will time the market correctly, right? They will shift between stocks and cash, right? And then we do see little evidence of market time ability from academic literature. So that's all I have for today.